Well, hi, everybody. This is Jim Peacock with Peak Careers and another Peak Careers interview. We're going to talk about the whys, why, how, and what fors for doing 3 words a year rather than setting goals and doing New Year's resolutions. And today I have Scott Woodard, and he is
Woodard.
an executive career coach. And I've known Scott for a while now. We've crossed paths in a number of places, and what we're going to do is we're going to explore why do you choose the 3 words, how do you do it, and what are your words and why. So Scott is an executive and career coach, and has this Scott Woodard coaching business. He and I have been involved a little bit with Maine Career Development Association, and then we also worked for a Portland career counseling and outplacement firm, and our paths continue to cross. But Scott has been doing this, I think, for 1 year longer than I have. But I'm really happy to have Scott here today. So welcome, Scott.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again, as always.
Likewise.
So go ahead. Why don't you talk about why do you do the 3 words? Why do you do this? What sort of inspired you to do it?
Well, the inspiration, of course, is as you know, is Chris Brogan, who is a really, I believe, innovative business coach and consultant based out of the Boston area, and he's been doing this 3 words every year for a number of years, and it's just something that resonated with me, and I've been doing it now since I think 2013. And for me, again, rather than doing New Year's resolutions or lofty goals, based on Chris's model, I choose 3 words that guide me in the work that I'm going to do for the coming year. And, Chris has a whole philosophy and thoughts about why 3 words, not 4, not 2, not 1. And I can't honestly remember what that is, but I know that for the past 5 years, I've been doing this. And it's been really helpful to kind of frame the work and keep me focused on the work that I want to do for that coming year.
Yeah, there is something about the 3s. I mean, there's always been something, when I'm helping people with mock interviews, a lot of times it's like just thinking, what are the 3 points that you want to make? Don't try to, you make 6 and, then it gets washed out. You make 1 and people are like, shallow.
Yeah. Yeah, we live in a Trinitarian world, I guess.
Well, there's definitely something very powerful about it. It's easy to remember, but it also keeps you focused, And so, I think you're the one. I think 3 years ago, I started doing this 3 years ago, and I think it was you that kind of said it. And then I started exploring Chris Brogan's work, and then last year. Actually, if people want to look back to last year's interview, it was with Chris Brogan, which was very cool just to meet him and to hear some of his thoughts on this. But I like it. There is something powerful about focusing on a few things, and for me, it's I don't necessarily separate my personal and work life with my words. Some words are more work oriented, but when we talk about my words, you'll kind of see that they all have a sort of a personal and a work life side. I think they drive more of my work, but I like doing.
I'm looking at kind of the words of the past, the 3 words that I've done in the past, and most of them have focused on the professional life as opposed to the personal. This year was quite a difference, where they integrate both personal and professional goals. And I didn't do that specifically. I think it was just a kind of an intuitive approach for me, and that we want to talk about how do we get to the three words.
Yeah.
For me, it's always been very intuitive. It's typically, I'll sit down, I know you go off on your retreats. I don't quite go off on a retreat, but I'll sit down and say, okay, what do I want to do? Usually in December, what do I want to do for next year?
Yeah.
And what are the words I want to use to guide me? And typically the three that come up quickly and intuitively. There was one, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, that was a little bit more work. I ended up with, or started out, I'm sorry, with probably half a dozen or even 10 words, and kind of winnowed from that the three. So it's different. It's intuitive. It's not a big strategic planning effort on my part. They just seem to come and seem to fit, and I've kind of learned to trust that process.
Yeah, I do. There's a lot of intuition for sure. And as you pointed out, I try to do a retreat, a tech-free, social media-free retreat once a month. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but I mean, most months I'm able to find one day, and it's usually a Friday. And so in December, I took my retreat, and one of the things I do is I journal. Most days I journal, and I literally go back to January of last year, and I just flip through what am I talking about? What are the themes that keep coming up?
Mm-hmm.
What's important to me?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the where do I want to be, and primarily in my business, but also kind of in my my rebalancing of my life. Because I think about, and this is where it's harder to say that I have a work life and I have a home life. I have from what I call a rebalancing,
Mm-hmm.
and 2019, I'm really trying to rebalance, how much time I spend on peak careers. I mean, I used to spend a lot of Saturdays and Sundays working, and I'm backing off, when I first started full time. So,
Yeah.
So I go through my journal, and then I look for those themes. And then I also I trust my instincts and say, it's like one of my words was, that I started with, and I just couldn't get over it. It was like joyful or happy. I was just like, all the crazy stuff going on in the country, and you read the papers and you're like, and I was just like, how can I be happy? I want to be happy. I want to make sure I'm happy. And I ended up, it just didn't feel right. That word, happy or joy, and I ended up calling up my buddy, my backpacking buddy and really good friend. And we sort of hashed it out a little bit. And I went, grateful. He was thinking, oh, how about grateful? And I thought, man, that was one of the words that I actually had written down in there. And that was clearly one of the words in my journal. So that's really how I got to that word, grateful. It was really about just trying to stay positive. And it's powerful, it's very powerful, because every day I think about it. I write more thank you notes now than I did in the past. I mean, those are the kind of things that happen when you do this.
Mm. So it's interesting that you brought in a friend, to help you kind of develop what those three words are. Have you done that in the past with the three words, or is it just something that you've generated?
No, like yourself? You were saying, one year you were kind of got stuck, and one year you were kind of like, man, I don't know, you had all these words, and for me, I kind of had a feel. But I mean, Reese he's definitely one of my best friends, and I've known him for years, and he's a good wordsmith. So, and I knew it would be and I kind of needed to talk it out. That's really what I needed to do. And so he's just ideal for it. So we just sat and chatted for 10 minutes and 15 minutes and really came up with that. So,
yeah. So that's interesting to bring in a different perspective. I mean, I don't even bring in my wife on that. I may talk to her about what they are afterwards, but
yeah.
And then she'll question, like, well, what does that mean? And which actually helps me feel more strongly about the words that I chose, because I have to explain them to
Right.
someone.
Well, and that's why I blog it. As soon as I get done, I write about why I did,
Yeah. That
why.
same way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to get it out there, but
Yep.
it's amazing. I mean, I had my virtual assistant. She made a couple of these Canva
Mm.
pictures, and they're around the house, and I'm actually every day. And when I journal, I'm now this year for the first time, and I like it is to start my journal, I write my 3 words.
That's interesting, because I've actually also done journaling for the first time not this year, but I guess at the end of last year, I started last quarter, went back to review what I had been writing about. And that's how these 3 words came about that I chose for this year. But I've also started writing down the 3 words, but I close out that day's, I call them morning pages, not journaling. Instead of start leading with the 3 words, I close them out. And I have found writing them down, and I just write them down. I don't write the meaning of it or anything like that.
Same
just
here.
is a good way to end that exercise for me and say, okay, now I'm ready to face the work day and what I need to do. So, and that again provides focus.
Right. So I'll just finish up. So grateful is 1 word, and that's the reasoning behind it. I really wanted something that was positive. Purposeful is one of my other words, and that kind of came out of I've had a business coach for about a year and a half, a little bit, maybe a little more, and I would catch myself saying, well, I really want to try to sit down and write today, because I've got a book coming out this spring, and I want to try to write. She goes, no, you're going to write. Just say it, And I realized purposeful. And you know what? It's amazing. This word is in front of me now, and I really catch myself saying I want to or I should, and I am really I'm slowly changing that, and it's on the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
And then reflection, I just loved it. I like to take time every day. I try to do a little meditation, a little journaling every day. And, it's some days it's harder than others, but, 90+% of the days I'm doing something. And that theme has been, like in 2016, I had mindfulness, and then 2017, I had wellness. But reflection or something like that is important to me. And again, that plays into both worlds, right? My personal and my work life. Purposeful plays into my work life, but it also plays into my personal life. And gratitude is everywhere. And so my words really are really go across the balance of my life, and that's what I like to think about. So what about yours? What are your 3 words, and why? What do they mean?
So my 3 words for 2019 are stewardship, pivot, and community. And stewardship's a big word for me this year. I'm working with a couple of clients who are leaders in their organization, and we're talking about leadership and what that means. And stewardship has come up in that, and I've started to apply it to my own life. It's the careful and responsible management of actions and activities. And again, to me, it relates to family, business, health, just about anything I'm engaged in. It's having that responsible nurturing of what I'm about, and it's professional relationships. It's my personal relationships with my family and my sons and the people I interact with, my neighbors. That's just an important word for me this year. It's also very influential from one of the big books that I've read in the last 6 months, Brene Brown's Dare to Lead. And she talks about values and identifying your values. And so stewardship is also a value that I've identified that I want to adhere to. Pivot reflects my thinking and actions about how I show up and work with the people that I care about in my life, clients, colleagues, family, and how I pivot from trying to have the answers to being able to ask the right questions that lead to the answers for those people. So it's very much about pivoting the focus from me as a coach to people as a client. And again, integrating the professional and the personal side. And in community is a reminder to be more engaged and active in my community. My geographic community, I live in Scarborough, Maine. I'm starting to get more active in some of the issues that are affecting Scarborough. My professional community, the people I interact with on a professional basis, other coaches and colleagues, and clients, and then also again my personal community, my family, and how I interact with them. So that one is more of a reminder. The other two are more intentions. Well, they're all three intentions, but it's how I intend to go through 2019.
So say all three words again one more time for me.
So stewardship, pivot, community.
Pivot. That was an interesting one. When I read that in your newsletter, your email, and I was like, but it's so true, as you do want to, especially with coaching, you do want to pivot. You want that, the focus to be on the client,
Exactly.
68.
Exactly. And it's really seductive, right? For us to come up with the answer, and say, well, this is what you should be doing.
Well, and it's sort of why I've gotten away from calling myself an advisor. That's the person with all the advice, a counselor who's going to figure it all out. I mean, I want to be a coach. I want to help other people figure it out.
Yep.
That's actually chapter 7 in my book that's coming out this really about that relationship and how important it is to keep that conversation going on the client side. The client should be talking 70% of the time, and you should be talking maybe 30%, asking those questions. But
I'm looking forward to the book.
Yeah. There'll be more out on that soon. I'm looking at end of March, April. So.
Oh, cool. Neat.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Well, listen, this has been great, and hopefully it's helpful for some people to get their head around what is this 3 words thing. But thank you so much, Scott. But I'm Jim Peacock, and owner of Peak Careers Consulting, and I offer the Facilitating Career Development class every year, at least once a year, since 2001. I offer that class in Maine, and then I also offer it once a year over New Hampshire, Vermont. But I allow people to satellite in using Zoom, so that can be done anywhere. If you're interested in that, check out my website. I also have online discussion-based seminars for career practitioners, face-to-face workshops, and I have a handful of individual career coaching clients. I don't do a lot with that. Most of my time and effort is really training career practitioners. So if you are a career practitioner, you can sign up to get my top 10 tips for working with an undecided person on my website, and you can also sign up for my newsletter and weekly emails on career topics. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, and Instagram. And Scott reminded me to get rid of Google+, which seems to be one of our dying social media platforms. And as you can see on the bottom of my slides, whenever I do presentations, they tend to be my 3 words will be on the first and last slide of almost everything I do. So it's another way I keep this stuff in front of me. So thank you very much, Scott, and nice to see you.
Good to see you, and a pleasure as always, Jim. Thank you.